Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, today we're going to be talking about the Incursions update. And I know a lot of you already have done your Zone 25 runs this month. I personally haven't, therefore I specifically wanted to make this video in order to have a very solid reference point of before and after actually going through all of it. However, I did do the Zone 25 run last month, and most of the changes from the last month have remained with, in my personal opinion, this update being easier one, because let's face it, every Deadpool is much easier to fight than Photon, and it was already significantly faster last month and easier than it was before the whole revamp. So let's break down this post really quickly, and I'm going to give my thoughts about it. So last month we dropped a large update where we improved a lot of friction points with Incursions. We're keeping most of those changes with small adjustments to the regular format. We're also giving you a new themed zone. That means bosses and regular encounters on the map will all be new. Stay tuned and keep your eye out for Metal Pool Meltdown. So it's obviously, as we can see in game, Deadpool themed, or should we say metal pools, and their henchmen have taken over Incursions themed zones. You will find Plat Pool and Gold Pool as new final bosses. Again, much easier champions to go up against than Photon, for instance. You also see fewer difficulties, which I like, and improved overall experience, and to that I definitely agree. Right, so the format update, again, there's going to be 6 sectors, just like last month. I do think that there is no particular need to have like 9 or 8 of them. So, if anything, I'd probably even say that they can combine a couple of these at some points as well. But, you know, I think in some cases less is more and less is better, when especially such a complex game as Marvel Contest of Champions have so many different game modes that you need to be aware of. There is no particular need to, you know, unnecessarily complicate things. So sectors 1 to 5 each have 15 zones total, and sector 6 has 25 zones to challenge the best summoners. Theme zones appear as 1, 4, 8, 12, then 16, 18, and 24. Theme zones will now have Plat Pool and Gold Pool as final bosses, with any of the following champions as regular opponents. And again, there's like, for most part, there are a couple of tricky ones, like Spider-Man Classic at a high SIG is an absolute evade machine, so something to counter evade here could be potentially quite important. Then again, most of these do not seem too troublesome, like Wolverine. At high zones you definitely need something like Despair and plus debuffs to counter the region. Cable is actually one of those that does kind of scare me. New Iron Man could be quite dodgy, and Medusa, for instance. Rest of these, well, there's Unstoppable Colossus, which also can be a bit frustrating, but overall, vast majority of these are relatively harmless champions like Captain America or Gwenpool or, I don't know, Civil Warrior or Venom Pool that have very little to offer in defensive, you know, pain for the summoners, which also means that you will likely be able to avoid fighting, you know, the Spider-Man, for instance, by selecting an alternate route to the boss, because now we get 3 different paths per room typically. So much appreciated change, by the way. Also, we have champion cooldown updates, and this is obviously a good thing. But here the funny thing is, why the hell was 7-star cooldown 140 hours to begin with? I mean, like, come on. Like, Incursions isn't exactly a game mode that's struggling to, you know, limit the player's playtime because everybody is grinding it. Incursions at no point since their creation was a game mode that anybody ever grinded out like as hard as possible. Whenever something new dropped at Incursions, you know, people did jump in it, but after that, you know, people have better things to do. People have story content, people have battlegrounds, people have, yeah, other game modes, and it just seems such a unnecessary thing, but at the very least it's gone. It's, yeah. Again, I wasn't even aware that there's a 92-hour cooldown in Incursions, because it never in a million years really occurred to me to play Incursions twice in a row. But, you know, Fair enough. Now, those are reduced basically 20 hours, meaning that you can do a zone push every day should you choose to do so. Again, I doubt that many people would, but this is undoubtedly a positive change, let's face it. So, hacks and node updates. There are no changes to hacks or choice nodes with this update. All hacks aside from boost hacks will be permanent when obtained. This is by far the coolest thing, which allows you to basically custom tune your run, which allows you much more control and which allows for much more stable results. Obviously, Incursions, by their design and default, will have that RNG aspect like much else of the game. And, you know, obviously it will still depend on what defenders you get with what node combinations and stuff like that, even though I do think Abam has been doing a relatively decent job in keeping some completely undoable nodes out. But I think it's quite impossible to completely weed it out. And they are carrying on with that as well, because there are buff updates, 3 total, as in they are removing 3 buffs. And for me personally, selective tie stream, I encountered it multiple times, but even if I didn't have access to shock or incinerate or something to passively heal block it, with the busted Incursion hack combos, you could typically just out damage it in most of the cases. There had to be like a very, specific champion that disables you from aggressive play or something to pose quite a bit of a struggle. Because as long as you had some sort of damage ramp, eventually you kind of got that big damage in anyways. But still, it is, I understand why they removed it. It is one of those nodes where you either can or can't. You can't chip away unless you kind of like do... Well, you can chip away, you fight for 19 seconds and then quit on purpose, but that's just stupid. And we also have can't touch this. Now, this is the node that I'm by far the most pleased when they removed. Out of all of the nodes, this one in particular, I think, seemed to always bother me. Because most of the champions I end up using for Incursions do not have like a very solid counter to evade, neither does the hacks that I like to use. So removing can't touch this, definite A+ in my book. There's not much else to say. Aspect of War, obviously, I doubt anybody likes that node either. So overview. In the rewards. Increased artifact yield across all remaining difficulties. Cool. Artifact cap to 500 because we're gonna need 400 for that 7-star crystal. Added 7-star shards and tier 6 CC to top zone rewards. Increased amount of various other resources. Increased gold in the milestones. Reduced requirements to collect milestones. Added exclusive 7-star incursion crystal to incursion store. It will require 8 7-star champions to purchase. Will cost 400,000 artifacts. It will be limited to 1 reset every 30 days. This crystal will contain, and let's face it, most of these champions aren't like super desirable as 7 stars because majority of them do rely on being awakened and not just awakened. Like Namor is a definition of SIG 200 or bust type of champion. Infinity War also highly wants a high SIG. So does Mojo. So does Angela. And I guess Ronin is alright without it. So, by far and away, the most meaningful pull here is Hulkbuster. If you pulled Hulkbuster, good for you. You should be very, very, very happy because that's the jackpot in that crystal. I think Hulkbuster is like basically 2 tiers above in the terms of desirability. And I think this crystal will help so many people to realize how strong is Hulkbuster. There's a very good reason why for a really, really long time I kept Hulkbuster in my top 10 tech list. As far as artifacts go, it's quite interesting because the ultimate ask here is how many you can get a month maximum, whether it's close to the 400k or not. And now if we add it all up slightly, so we can actually pull out the calculator for you guys. So I'll quickly whip out a little calculator. I'll drop it here and I'm gonna add those numbers roughly. So it's 93k plus 43k plus 35.8. So I'm gonna do 35 plus 30 roughly plus 24 and 20. So let's say plus 45. So from that you get 246. So it is evident that it is not going to be the 400k needed, but there are some slight sources. But basically, I think it's tuned so you can get 2 crystals every 3 months or something like that, which I think is, fair amount, because it's not the only thing that you are chasing, obviously, with these incursion runs, because there are the top zone bonus rewards and everything else. Speaking of, we can take a look at those, and they have been improved. They effectively doubled the amount of tier 6 basic, tier 3 alpha, upping it up to 2, added in 2,300 7-star shards for the highest zone run, which, isn't gonna break the bank, but is appreciated, and added 25% tier 6 CC, which I do find a bit lacking personally, but I suppose it kind of matches up with the tier 6 basic, tier 3 alpha, more or less, that you're acquiring. Other than that, we still have the 6-star awakening gem that is generic now, not a class one, and the generic 6 stones, which now are in total of 100. So the rewards are definitely improved, but let's face it, top tier players, the players that will be pushing zone 25s, really care about tier 6 basic, tier 3 alpha, 7-star shards, and tier 6 CC. That 6-star awakening gem, again, not to be elitist or spoiled or something like that, you really don't care about 6-star awakening gems anymore if you're playing at a relatively high level. And 6-star 6 stones are always nice, but that's kind of like neat throw-in reward at this point. And the 10,000 6-star shards seems pretty much redundant, more or less. But still, if you're going to be pushing zone 25, I do think it's a relatively decent haul, considering how much easier it has been made. If it has maintained the level of difficulty that we had last month, which I believe it should, which is kind of like the main talking point. The rewards themselves seem solid, decent, good, but what makes them much better, in my opinion, is because this zone 25 push used to take about like 5 hours, and now you can do it under 2 hours. Or it used to take 4 hours plus. It's definitely like at least half as fast. And considering that you spend half amount of time that you did before, whilst getting double the amount of tier 6 basics, whilst getting some 7-star shards, whilst getting some tier 6 CC, I, for once again, think that it is going to be worthwhile doing these incursion runs. Considering that they're faster, considering that they're easier, with the rewards improvement as well. And here are the milestones for Sector 1, Sector 6, and stuff like that, and how much gold is in there. So it's 1 million gold, and it does seem that the amounts required are significantly lower. And we'll see how good of a gold source it is. One of the things that is kind of like an unfortunate drawback to this update of Incursions, I know for a lot of people, the Incursions artifacts used to be a very solid ISO source, because you could buy unlimited amounts of 4-star crystals. And so in an ironic way, I do think that there's going to be a group of players that will be presented with a relatively tricky dilemma. You can either kind of like save your artifacts for the 7-star, which is, by all accounts, the more reasonable, worthwhile thing to do, but then your ISO struggles might increase unless you find some other solid ways of gaining ISO, or you will have to basically forego the case of that 7-star crystal, which again I can see quite a lot of people doing, because again there's Hulkbuster, and then most of those champions unawakened aren't that impressive. So maybe for some players it will be better. I don't know. Let me know what's your opinion about Incursions overall. I will try to get Incursions run done either this weekend or at some point next week. My life's still a bit hectic. I can't, know many things for certain. There's plenty still to sort out and plenty still to change. But I will try my best to stream it, I think. I'm not entirely sure. Would you guys rather watch that or, standard Battlegrounds grind? Because I really like Battlegrounds too. So it's, I think something that you guys can weigh in on. Would you want to see me trying to do the Zone 25 incursion run live or you just prefer the background stream and I can just do it off stream. It doesn't really change all that much to me, especially considering the fact that even if I stream it, I still have some of the revives from last month's event. So even if I do make some mistakes, you know, it's not like it's gonna incur some significant cost to me. Overall, though, I like what they're doing with Incursions. Last month, I already said that the update for the new Incursions is good. Whoever is working on Incursions clearly knows what they are doing in much higher degree of certainty than in quite a few other game modes. In quite a few other game modes, we have these updates. For instance, the Alliance War Rewards update that kind of seemed like a miss. Definitely, you know, a source of pain point of frustration for a lot of people. And Alliance War update in general, with the changes, you know, with the mastery situation and a handful of other things, the increased, you know, issues for officers or where you change the maps and stuff like that. That clearly wasn't thought out well. Like, there's a lot of problems with Alliance War update that hopefully Kabam will sort soon. But here they do seem to be streamlining it. They seem to be making it more consistent, more stable, faster, more rewarding, all of which are positive signs. So let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you guys soon. Bye! Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information